Let's see if we are live over here. I'm gonna double check real quick as I always do on my other screen. Gotta check my live stream and see if it's live. And it is! Yay! Hello, everyone. Oh, I just bumped my desk. So, hello, everyone. My name is Kasia. I am your host, and welcome to Creative Pet Keeping. Last time we talked on the previous live stream, I was talking about how I don't really know when I want to live stream, and I finally decided that I would like to do once a month live streams for now. Haven't picked a particular time or date, so for now they're going to be a little sporadic, but expect to be able to kind of hang out with me, ask me questions, and we can spend some time together, which I think is a lot of fun. And I also picked a topic for today so we can have a topic to discuss. And more towards the end, if you would like to ask me some questions, we can definitely do that. So I see that people are deciding to pop up. Oh, I'm so excited. Hello, everybody. I'm seeing the chat. It's so exciting. It's so fun. Sorry, I'm a little yellow today, but it's getting dark. I think our sunset the sun might set. I kind of said that backwards at like 4-ish. Right now here it is 3:30 central time. So we're losing light kind of fast. I have my little lamp over here as kind of a little backup light, which is gonna make me yellow, but that's okay. So everyone is popping in. I'm very excited. You could also see my fish in the background. Just want to quickly explain that that tank right there doesn't have any plants. So I decided not to turn on the light. It still gets natural light, but then I don't get algae problems. I have a lot of my shellies in there that live in the shells. So yeah, just wanted to explain that because all the lights everywhere else are on. So let's talk about female bettas. I feel like it's a fun topic that doesn't get talked about super often in the hobby. The focus tends to be mostly on male bettas because they're so beautiful. They have the fancy finish, they have the sassy attitude, and a lot of times people will prefer them. But I think that female bettas are really, really underrated. I feel like they are just as interesting. They can be just as beautiful, especially nowadays with the um, longer fin varieties. You can get females with much longer fins than you did back in the day. So there is some more finnage options that used to be available that aren't available now that were not available in the past. And on top of that, female bettas do have very interesting personalities. Now, one of the most common things that we always talk about is female sororities, which I have a female sorority right over here with, I think, one male that was from the sibling spawn. Of course, I'm keeping my little babies right here that are together as well. And I've always been kind of on the fence with female sororities. And the reason for that is because female bettas, although usually are less aggressive than males, it is not always the case. And in many situations, I found out that female bettas can be just as aggressive as males, and some females can be even more aggressive. And that is something that I think we don't get prepared to see because or experience because you see sororities and then you're warned that, like, yeah, they can be aggressive, and if you spread out the aggression by housing more fish together, then that will solve the problem. But in the end, it really depends on your individual fish and where you source them from. One of the things I noticed that will kind of increase the chances of you encountering aggression with female bettas, especially if you are housing them together in a sorority setup, is if you buy a bunch of females that were separately housed as they are sold. I noticed that they become much more territorial. Also, when people jar their fish, oftentimes they will prioritize jarring males first, but very aggressive females will also get jarred first. So if you go to, if it was a pet store or a fish convention and there was a beautiful display, there's a bunch of cups with female bettas. You don't really know if those bettas were selected to be put in that cup because of their aggression in the first place. So that's one of those things that can get you in trouble. Now, I'm going to pause a little bit to check on the comments since we are live, and I tend to kind of forget to do that. So I'm going to do that and see what you guys are saying. Everyone is saying hello. Larry wants to try sorority in 125. That would be very interesting. I would definitely encourage you to try to get like a larger amount. I would go for like 20 females or more because I noticed that the more fish you have in the same tank, I mean, granted, if you have enough space too, the less issues you're going to run into, especially if it's heavily planted. But you have to still monitor your sorority. So whether your sorority is in the average that people kind of go for, which would be like 20 gallons, I would say, or a larger tank, even if it's less planted or more planted, I feel like always female sororities require some, I guess, babysitting on our part as fish keepers. And what I mean by that is, for example, with my cichlids that are, well, I'm pointing the wrong way, they're right over here, my Placidochromis, even though they are aggressive, I don't have to worry about them killing each other. And they're fighting. You'll see some fighting, but it's pretty like reasonable. With my sorority up there, I have to actually spend some time looking at them every day. So I don't do a lot. What I would do is I would say spend like 2 to 5 minutes just actively just kind of looking at my fish. And when you take the time to pause and observe your tank, versus you know how some people will like feed the fish, you'll look at the tank, you'll walk away, maybe you're very busy, you might miss a lot of things that you wouldn't see when you actually take the time to look at your tank. So I like to actually pause and just take a little bit of time, just watch them. And then what I look for is I check their fins. Is there a lot of fin nipping and a lot of fin dip damage? Is there a lot of posturing or any bullying behavior? So any fish that is ganging up on another fish. Is there a fish that looks like it's distressed, like breathing very heavily at the top of the tank, maybe because of being chased around and very bullied? So I kind of look at those things. And if I see that there is a particular aggressive female, I will remove the female and I will jar her, or always kind of mess around with the tank and make some changes. So sometimes I have more plants, but it's never something that I can just kind of leave alone and let it be, kind of like I can with some of my cichlids. I do have a similar problem with the ocellatus. Ocellatus also requires some babysitting because if you don't intervene and make sure that they're not too aggressive, they will kill each other. And unfortunately, they did kill one of my females in here. So I am currently have two males in this tank. They're getting along fine because they're very sassy with each other. There's enough space for them to have two separate territories. But it's one of those things that you really, really have, which is very hard to kind of talk about when it comes to, I guess, figuring out if you want to recommend female sororities or not, because I really feel like it's tricky. When you do keep female bettas together, they are always going to have to deal with stress. That's something you can't avoid. I mean, you can get a really big planted tank. You can really fill it up. You can try to get a lot of bettas to spread out the aggression, but in the end, they are in a closed system where they don't have the choice of, I guess, escaping or leaving if there is any confrontation, stress, or aggression, which is why, as a fish keeper, it's so important to, I guess, provide that out if they need to escape by removing the fish, either jarring it, providing it with a separate tank of its own, or in my case, I will, bring fish to my local fish swaps or events, and I will sell them there so they get rehomed. So it's one of those things I wanted to kind of talk about. Let's look at the chat some more. PM19 says, you're so talkative. I'm feeling very chatty today, that's for sure. And I like to talk more in live streams than answer questions, even though I really like to answer questions and interact with you guys. But I feel like if I look at the chat too much, sometimes I get distracted or I'll lose my train of thought. So it's a weird, weird balance. I feel like live streams are kind of tricky, and people who live stream regularly, I feel like they build up um, social skills that make them very good at live streaming. And I feel like for me, I think I'm okay. Not the bestest, kind of chatty, really excited to hang out with you guys, that kind of stuff. So more people are commenting. Let's see. Patty's Petite Tank says, I'm not taking any chances, no sorority for me. That's sometimes a really good thing to do, to make a choice where you don't want to put your fish in a situation where they're going to be, in the risk of getting harmed or stressed out. In my opinion, the best option if you want to completely avoid stressing your fish out is keeping your betta in a solo tank. I know that kind of can sound kind of sad, oh, like, all my betta fish is alone, but I did notice that in the tanks that I do keep single bettas, for example, I have my Tancho male in this little, it's not a 4 gallon, not a very big tank, but he's got that tank for himself. There's, I think, like 2 or 3 shrimp in there, and that's kind of it. And he's doing really, really well because no one is bothering him. He does get some stimulate, like visual stimulation, because the tank is not carded, so we can kind of see some of the endlers and the plecos swimming around. Although they are not fish that he would feel threatened by or would flare a lot at. It's more so just something interesting. And I noticed that when I keep my fish alone, they tend to live longer and do better than the ones that I keep in a sorority setup. Now, what I did from my previous spawn is I held back a lot of fish and I jarred some of them, and then I kept them the other half together in a sorority. And I wanted that to be kind of an experiment to try to see and compare whether or not the fish that are in the tank together will do better than the ones that are jarred up here. And so far, I've realized that the fish that are jarred are doing better than the ones in the sorority health wise. Now, the fish are doing in here, they're for the most part, I would say fine because there's not a lot of fin nipping. There's not, I did remove the most aggressive fish. So currently in here are only the most docile females. But even with that, I feel like as much as I really like I like sororities in some ways, I also, like, am on the fence, and I feel like they're I always go back and forth, I guess, because 'cause I'll say I like sororities, I don't like sororities. It just I can't honestly say that it is a foolproof and, like, a safe way to keep your females together through my experiences. So it's hard to kind of decide if that makes sense because this is like more easy to maintain, right? Than, for example, a jar that needs way more water changes. You have to managing the temperature is a lot more difficult. I mean, I have a heater, so that's a lot easier. So there are pros and cons where for the fish keeper, that kind of setup is easier for me to maintain. This kind of setup is a lot more work for me. But when it comes to what's better for the betta fish, oddly enough, even though I'm jarring them and they're in currently in 1 gallon jars, because I do like to jar my fish in larger setups if they're going to stay there longer term, they're doing better in this situation. Um, but it's kind of something I wanted to figure out through experimenting, and I feel like as long as you're experimenting in a way that you're trying to reduce your fish getting harmed, because I don't wanna when you say experimenting, kinda sounds bad, like, "I'm gonna try this or that on my fish to see what happens." I try to make, to the best of my ability, safe experiments where if something happens and I see that my fish is getting harmed or my fish is stressed out, like, I will take it down or set up a different tank or remove the fish kind of thing. But I really wanted to see like which ones would do better. Now, granted, this was like one experiment from one spawn, so I can't use it as a definitive like this is how things work. That does do better in jars because it was not like a good science experiment. It was more so like at home. I'm a hobbyist fish keeper trying things out. So I feel like I would have to try this out a few more times with a few more spawns to really like for sure be able to say that either female bettas benefit more from a community setup versus a jar. I also haven't, to make this experiment better, I should have also set up, and I didn't have the space for it right now, but I should have set up a tank where I can have a couple single females in their own tanks. And I feel like that would have been a much better comparison because then we have female bettas in their own tanks, female bettas in a sorority setup, and then female bettas in jars. And of course, with another thing, a factor that plays a role is going back to what I was talking about earlier with the aggressive females that you can sometimes purchase, getting a female group that was raised together versus a couple random fish that maybe you got from a pet store or an event. That will also play a big role in your chances of things going right. You can get lucky and get a group of unrelated females that will not be as aggressive, but more often than not, the ones that are jarred and have been kept separately because they've already spent some time by themselves, they're gonna become more territorial, so when they get put to get, like, back in with other females, it becomes a stressful kind of situation for them to deal with, so I just kind of a lot of different factors that goes into it, but it's things that I think about as a fish keeper a lot of the times because I'm always thinking about, you know, how do we improve the hobby? How do we learn and check that the things that we're doing are, the right things to do, I guess, because it's easy to in the hobby say like, "Okay, this is what you're supposed to do A, B, and C for fish," and that may work, but as you learn more about fish, and especially with more research that comes out as people make studies and as the hobby progresses, you may learn that what you thought was a good way to house a fish may either, be tweaked and improved in some ways or may not have been, like, entirely good. We as fish keepers might not have just known at the time that there were better options, if that makes sense. So, let's go talk in the comments again while I'm doing my ramble. But it's kinda fun to talk to you guys, and I feel like, for most of my videos, I try to, like, plan it and condense it and, make it really short and to the point, but with these live streams, it's kinda fun because I can just sort of randomly share my ideas with you, and I think that's really fun. You guys can kinda pick my brain, I can pick your brain, and we can, like, discuss fishy stuff together. So so let's see. Blessed with Pets says all of my females were bought separately at different times, and they all get along great. See, so it totally does happen. It's like it's hard for me to say like whether or not I can recommend sororities because it's really different for everyone. I can't be like, "Don't do it, it sucks," or "Do it, it's fine," because everyone has a different experience, I noticed, with them. What I can do to the best of my abilities is, I guess, always try to list pros and cons so that, people can make educated, decisions, and I think a lot of you guys that are here on this live stream, uh, are just as knowledgeable about fish as I am, and I trust you guys to, do the research and also try things out yourself and make good decisions and good calls on what you should and shouldn't do with your fish. Because, for example, right here, we have an example of a sorority that is totally working out, which is cool. Okay, I'm gonna check some more comments. Do, 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 do. Oh, I have a question about, crossbreeding 2 different tail types. Is it good or bad? It depends what you want. So I'll try to go back to the topic of female bettas in a little bit, but we'll just dive into this one super quick. When you cross different tail types, if you have a goal in mind, down the line, it could help you create something that you want to achieve. But initially, what you're gonna get is a spawn with kind of a variety of different tail types. Like, if, for example, if you breed like a half moon to like a cat, you're gonna have some fish that have like shorter fins, some fish will have longer fins, and it won't be kind of even. So they're gonna be kind of like I don't know how to explain it, kind of like wonky looking. I don't know, but sometimes that is where you want to start and kind of work with that. But usually, if you want to have a spawn that's got more so uniform lineage, if you want to, I guess, know what you're gonna expect a little more, then I would stick with breeding 2 of the same tail types. That's what I've been doing, gives me predictable results, and as I'm working on my little line and also experimenting with the star tails, it's just easier for me to kind of figure it out and work with it, so I haven't tried that yet, although I would like to, in the future, if I had a little more space and time, I would like to do a little more experiments and try to cross different tail types just to see, like, what I can do with that and what are the outcomes. And also, it would just be interesting for me to document it and share it with you guys as well. Oh, we also got super chat. I don't know, should I just do a little, like, super chat dance every time I get a super chat? I don't know what this is. I'm gonna call this wiping the aquarium glass. Wipe the aquarium glass. Don't leave the water stains on the aquarium glass. I'm such a weirdo, but thank you for the super chat. And it says, "My betta hates it, my betta hates he's 5 gallon and loves his 1 gallon." Oh, that's actually kinda ties it back to the jars versus the tank. So this up there is a 20-gallon long. There's also 10-gallon next to it, and these are 1-gallon jars. And sometimes I notice that bettas do prefer the smaller space, and they kind of do freak out when you put them in a larger tank, which it's like counterproductive because we wanted to give them the best, so we wanna give them more space, we wanna give them more options, but sometimes you have to go with what your individual pet or fish want in this case, and I've seen a couple of situations where I've put a betta in a larger tank and they were stressed out, even if it was a heavily planted tank, and then if when I, for example, jarred them or put them in a smaller tank, they were happy. So it really depends. I still do recommend, larger tanks, for example, like 5 or 10 gallons for a betta just because it's just a safer kind of starting size for the average fish keeper. But that's why, like, even though originally when I started in the hobby, I was, like, super against keeping bettas in bowls and tiny things, now my opinion changed. I still feel like bettas do deserve, a filtered, heated, environment, or at least if it's not filtered, you want something that you're maintaining a lot, like I am maintaining my water changes. But now I've realized that, like, some smaller spaces are okay as long as it's for the right reason. So, in pet stores, they keep bettas in smaller spaces because it's convenient for them, and it's convenient for the way they sell them and set them up, but it's not at all convenient for the fish, the way they're set up. So that's an example of, like, bettas in a smaller space, it's really bad. Also, a lot of the smaller tanks that I reviewed, a lot of them are bad, a lot of them are getting better, things are improving, so that's really good. So I feel like size is one of those things you have to think about when it comes to fish, like keeping but not fish keeping, but keeping bettas, but it's not like a specific you have to keep them in a certain way and they'll be happy in that specific certain way. You have to be flexible to the needs of your fish. That's my little ramble about that. What's your opinion on breeding fish from Petco or PetSmart? So my first spawn and the beginning of the line that I've been working on that turned into, what I'm trying to now kind of focus on, the Tancho line, started originally from 2 fish that were from Petco, and I feel like you whenever you start off, you sometimes have to, like, work with what is available. At the time when I started out, it would have been much more, like, risky and overwhelming or more difficult to try to import fish because at the time, like now importing fish is more common, it's something people are doing a lot more, now there's a lot more bettas coming in from like, other sources, but when I started out, it was a little more, like, you have to know people and you have to know, like, who to get the bettas from to get really good quality fish. So for me, the best thing was just to start off with a PetSmart fish. I don't remember if it was PetSmart or Petco, but I did take the time to select the best fish that I could possibly start off with, and I also made sure to ask them when they were gonna have, like, their fresh import order from their fish. So when I came to select my fish, I got them literally the day after they came in, so they were all in, like, really good health, and I had a good selection to choose from, and that was a good starting point for me. Now the downside is I didn't know any background behind the fish, so I mean, I knew they were polecat and I knew they were, koi marbles, but other than that, it was kind of like, "Just gonna do it, just gonna see what happens," but it was a good, I guess, starting point for me. Looking back now, I would still be okay with pet store fish sometimes because you could sometimes get, like, really nice if you know what you're looking for, you can get really nice fish, but it's nice that we now have options that we can get fish from, breeders, or we can select which, fish farms we get them from, like, it's so nice that there's different options. The one downside, though, is I have seen that there are some people online that do import and sell bettas that do try to, take advantage of people and, like, really hike up the prices by describing the fish as, like, a super rare type when it's not. Um, for example, I remember there was this one guy who was selling, he was saying that the panda koi were, like, really rare when in reality, panda koi are just, koi marbles that, were part of a larger marble spawn. They're not you can't selectively breed for panda koi that will produce more panda koi. You were just getting a marble that happened to have the panda, like, pattern, which was not even guaranteed to stay that way too. And, like, when I was looking at the photos, I could see that some of the fish that 'cause he had a couple panda koi, some of them were already showing, like, blues and other colors, Anyways, and this guy was charging, like, I think 200 for, like, a fish, and I was like, That's not cool. That's a ripoff." And then I got in an argument with him online, and then he blocked me. So, till then, I try not to debate with people, but that really frustrated me because I felt like he really was, like, scamming people, and I thought that was not okay. Like, I'm okay with people pricing their fish higher if that's something they worked really hard to breed. They've worked on a line for a very long time. Maybe the fish are really healthy. They have a good reputation for really producing high quality fish. Then I'm like, okay, cool. Yes, charge more. You know, these fish are worth more. But like when you're importing fish and then you're hiking up the price and then lying to people to make it look like it's a rare thing, but it's really not. It's not fair because then someone could like purchase these fish thinking that they're gonna be true and produce, like, more panda koi when it's really not gonna happen, and it's gonna cause, like, disappointment and stuff like that. So that's really frustrating, and I really don't like to see that. So that's my little grumpy rant. So, more people are popping in. We've got Crystal's Pets and Plants. Hello, it's nice to see you. And then we've got, like, a ton of people. We have, Jake Fish Keeping, we've got Rob's Aquarium Room. A lot of awesome people popping in. Super fun. I won't make this live stream too long because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But it's just nice to kind of hang out and talk. And in case you guys have any questions about my fishy stuff, this would be the time to do it. Also, while I have you here, I did put out a video recently that was doing a first look and impression on this game, and it's a beta game, and I think it was really cool. And so if you haven't seen that video just yet, be sure to check it out because I think it's cool to support people who are making beta themed things because we back in the day, I remember when I started in the hobby, like betta themed things were so rare. You either could get like saltwater stuff or it was like goldfish or carp themed, and that was it. And if something had like a betta on it, oh, it was like wow, so cool. And now more and more people are making betta related like t-shirts, art, and pillows and decor. And then we have a game. Like that's so cool. Like as someone who like really likes bettas, it's nice to see that like I can get betta themed things. I even have a little betta themed plushie over there. Poop. I pooped it. So oh, Avtech says, thanks for the video. First time catching a live stream. Yeah, that's awesome. I usually don't live stream that often, so it's kind of tricky to catch me on live streams. So you did a good job. You were at the right place at the right time, and then here we are. I don't know why I don't schedule live streams ahead of time. Well, this one I schedule like 30 minutes ahead of time, but for some reason, if I do try to schedule them, I start getting a little stressed out as I kind of like wait for the live stream to happen. So I prefer to just like randomly be like, yeah, I want to do a live stream on this particular day, and then I kind of like to pop in. I don't know why. I'm kind of weird. That's what we do, and it kind of works out. And it's so fun that you guys are hanging out with me over here. Um, and stuff like that. I don't know. Kind of random. Oh, I totally forgot. We veered off of the topic of aggression and female badass. So another thing that pops into my mind, where is an example of females being really aggressive is when it comes to spawning. It personally has not happened to me, but I've seen some stories, like horror stories of female bettas that were so aggressive that when they were in the spawning tank, they would beat up the male and they would beat up the male pretty badly. So it's possible to even have a female that will be more aggressive than the male, which I guess could depend on a couple things. One of the things is bettas can change genders, so you can have a fish that starts out as male but then became a female, and I wonder if that plays a role with more aggressive fish. I know that also the chemicals that are in your water actually have play a role in the aggression of your fish. So if you're in the city like me, where people, I guess there's a large population, and it's people take medications, and those end up in the sewer system, and then those end up going into the water, kind of go through all the whole system, get cleaned, and then go to the water treatment, right? Water treatment plants don't remove medications and certain chemicals out of the water. So, for example, if people are taking, let's say, antidepressants, that will still stay in our water and that will affect your fish. So, bettas, I noticed that are in like city water sometimes can be more mellow just because of the medication that's still like in our water. There was a study done where they actually actively put, I don't, it was a type of like mild sedative in a all male betta tank. It was all males, and they, while they were constantly dosing the tank on a regular basis, it made the males all mellow and they weren't fighting, which is kind of interesting. I mean, personally, I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't want to, like, medicate my fish to get them to be, mellow. But it was interesting to see the effect of the medications. And then when they stopped dosing the tank, the males got aggressive and started fighting. So that was an interesting thing. So I think the type of water you have really plays a role in the aggression of your fish. And I sometimes wonder if my betta, at least the line of bettas that I've bred, I wonder if they're more mellow because they've been growing up in Chicago water. Because Chicago water probably has all sorts of stuff in it because we have a large kind of population. Although now I live in the suburbs, so I'm like a little, I'm still near Chicago. I always say Chicago because it's the easiest, but it's things I think about. That was my little water break as I'm rambling so much. But yeah, I think what else can I say about female bettas and their aggression? Um, I guess we covered all the. I think I rambled about all the aspects. So at this point, I guess if you have like any questions, whether it's about like my fish room or like creative pet keeping, like you can definitely put them in the comments. I definitely don't want to make this live stream too long today, so I'm not going to be staying on for super long, but I will stay on for a couple more minutes. But I think it's kind of fun to talk to you guys. Um, excuse me, I had a little burp, and another one came out. I kind of try to stop it, but it's really fun to talk to you guys. Um, Ooh, question. I got a question. Does my beta understand when I speak to him? He seems like he does, but he just doesn't care. So I do know that betta fish, can hear. They can hear what's in their tank. They can hear what's around their tank. But I don't think they have the capability to understand verbal cues from humans. That's like the way I'm going to describe talking. But from what I do know is fish. Oh, my fish are spawning. I just see it. Well, actually, I saw the replay of my live stream, and the Placidochromis were like trying to spawn a little bit over here, and then distracting me a tiny bit. Sorry, but um, fish are very visual. So there have been some situations of some training that was done with parrotfish where they used shapes and colors and numbers, and they were trying to see if the fish can distinguish shapes. And from the parrotfish can distinguish shapes. I don't remember if they can distinguish colors, but I do know that if you go to the places like Shedd Aquarium, large places where they keep a lot of fish, oftentimes they will target train a variety of fish, and fish that you wouldn't even think could learn to be target trained. They learn to go to their target. So you could potentially teach a betta maybe to respond to a visual target. Now, your betta might react to you talking to it. If, for example, if you talk to your fish every time you feed it, then maybe the fish can pick up on the vibrations of when you speak and just connect that to like, oh, I hear something. Here's the creature that appears, and then food pops up. And they could put all those together potentially if you kind of repeat the pattern over and over again, and then maybe potentially use, I guess, your voice to call your betta over. I know that when I tap on the glass, sometimes I'll do a thing where I'll tap a little gently and then I'll feed the fish. So then the fish learn that if I tap on the glass, it needs food and they'll swim up. That's kind of a very easy way to coax shy fish to come out of hiding. If you do it very regularly, they will kind of connect the pattern and they'll figure that out. But I really wish that you could like teach your fish to like verbally like I wish I could be like spin and like bet a fish would spin, but I don't think that would be possible. I do want to try fish training one day. I thought about it because you could get those kits, and I know that some Facebook betta groups host the Betta Olympics, which is kind of cool, where they have betta fish, jump over little hoops or go over obstacles. I think that's really cool. They do that. I'm very interested. I want to I want to find a resource that I can read more about it. So I want to try to see if I can find a book where maybe someone tried to train a fish or behavior modification with fish because I know a lot with dog training and stuff because I used to work for a consulting company that consulted dog training companies. So for a while, like I was surrounded by a lot of dog trainers. So that was really cool. So I know I at least I like to think that I know a pretty good amount about dog training. When it comes to fish, not so much. So let's get some more question. What temperature do you keep your betta at? So I don't keep all my bettas at the same temperature. It really depends at what stage they're in. So fish that I'm spawning and that are in my spawning tanks, I do keep them at 80 degrees. But once they get a little bigger, I do lower that down to about 78. And then the fish that are jarred over here, they can get sometimes as low as 76. I usually don't let it get lower than 76, but usually they also hover around 78. And then in the summer, what happens is I oftentimes will have my windows open a lot, and I do let my fish room get warmer. So my fish, the warmest they've been, at least here, I think would be like 81, 82. Usually it doesn't get warmer than that. So bettas can tolerate like a range of temperature. You want to keep them kind of warmer. They prefer warmer. They can tolerate cooler temperatures, but they don't do well in cooler temperatures longer term, from my experience. But it's okay if it's like winter time and your temperature drops. So for the winter time, right now they're at 76, and I'm cool with that because I used to try to keep my fish room like hot enough that they would be at 80, and I found that that was just too ridiculous. The evaporation of the tanks was way too high. It was way too humid in this room. I even have the dehumidifier running right now, but that wasn't enough at the time. And I was worried that with the high temperature, not a whole lot of air circulation, that I would get mold in this room. So I accepted that it could be a little lower. And then once I let it get a little lower, and which was around for the tanks, 78, I found that that was like a good sweet spot for me. So I try to stay around that. If it drops to 76 in the winter, I'm cool with that, but that's kind of where I try to keep them. So it really depends on where you're at. The most important thing is you want to have, for the most part, consistent temperature. So you don't want swings. If your temperature drops a little bit over an extended period of time and it kind of stays there, and then over an extended period of time will slowly go up a little bit as the seasons change, that's totally fine. But if your temperatures are going up and down a lot, that is causes so much stress for fish. So definitely try to avoid that. So let's check um, some more questions. I have a question about the dragon scale bettas. Are they prone to tumors erupting underneath those scales? I noticed dragon scales and metallics are much more prone to getting tumors. It's more so of like a genetic and a very heavy line breeding and inbreeding problem. Sometimes the scales also, if they're growing like the scales themselves don't cause the tumors, but what I was thinking about was I was trying to go towards they can go over the eyes and you can get the diamond eye or like alien eye. But I've noticed that the more we heavily line breed bettas, the more issues are popping up. And then also water quality really matters. So if fish are being raised in water that might have pollutants or plastics in it or any other chemicals, that will also play a role in them potentially developing tumors. So I'm gonna check more comments. Boop, boop. Mm. Is there a particular breeding you have not done yet, but would really like to do? Hmm. In terms of specifically bettas, I want to at least one time. breed probably half moons because I haven't really worked with the longer fin varieties. Just for me, because I have, multiple tanks with multiple different species, I try to limit the amount of, like, breeding projects I have going on, so that way it's not overwhelming for me, or, like, to ensure that I have enough time with, like, outside work and, like, outside stuff and, like, chores and errands and also taking care of fish. I try to balance it all, so I haven't done that yet, but in the future, I would like to do that. I think I wanna try working with different tail types, if anything, just to document the differences so that we can compare. I think to be able to compare different spawns together is so, so interesting, and you can learn a lot. For me to have my line that I've been working on and then the new star tail, um, breeding that I did, to be able to compare those 2 spawns has been super fun just to see how different they are, and I felt like that was a really cool learning experience. I definitely wanna do that. But in terms of breeding, like, non, uh, bettas, what I like to really breed? That I haven't done yet. I definitely would like to breed all the different varieties, the color varieties of ocellatus, so, I haven't bred the blue ocellatus yet. I would like to try to get the black ocellatus. I don't know, I just wanna collect all the varieties of ocellatus because the Lamprologus ocellatus are my favorite. They're so cute, they're so sassy. I have some here. There's more here. I wanna have more. I wanna have more little tiny angry fish, and I wanna breed them. Downside is they're kinda at least for me, they're tricky because they're so aggressive, so if you kinda leave the tank alone and don't check in and don't manage, there is a possibility that they can all kill each other, and it really, really sucks because they're just so mean, but I'm gonna breed more, spread them around the hobby. So let's see, I didn't scroll. Let's scroll through. Doo. I trained my betta to jump through a floating log hole. Oh, that's so cool. I really wanna try that. I've never tried the only, I guess, training I've done is a couple years ago, I did an experiment where, I had 2 male bettas in a 20-gallon, but they were separate. One was in a breeding box, the other one had for himself, and I would rotate them, and I taught them to willingly swim into the breeding box on their own to get fed. So if I released the other male, it would be so cool. He would swim past the other male. They wouldn't care, they would just learn from it, and, it was like a cool experiment where they just sort of, like, became okay with each other because being around each other meant being fed, and with each other also meant getting fed. I don't know if I could ever replicate that again, but it would be interesting to see if I could food reward to encourage less aggressive behavior in fish. I don't know if that was, like, I can't really say that I trained them to be not aggressive. I think maybe it was a combination of just luck. It was an interesting experiment. I remember at the time, 'cause I started out, my channel was, like, really small at the time, and I posted that particular video, just a video of just the fish swapping, like, me releasing the male, he's swimming away, the other male is swimming into a box, breeder box all on his own. I thought it was cool. I posted it in, like, a betta Facebook group, and, oh, man, people, I guess because people didn't have the context, people thought I was doing, like, weird, like, risky experiments with bettas, and they kind of ripped me apart. I got spanked that day on Facebook, and I was like, "In the future, if I want to try to share my, things I do, I need to provide people with, like, context behind what I'm doing instead of just showing it to them, because it's super easy to, like, misunderstand." So that was on me. I should have explained, like, what was the point, explained to the people that, the the bettas were never, like, other than during the swapping, the male bettas were never unsupervised alone together at all, so there was no chance of them, like, fighting or hurting each other. The only time they were together was for the few seconds where they swapped, and when they were, not swapping, they wouldn't even flare at each other. They just learned to just not care as they lived in the tank together. It was not one of those experiments that I did. That's kinda weird, but it was cool. I think I still have to dig it up. It's somewhere multiple hard drives because I have so much fish that have, like, multiple drives. I don't remember where it is, but I do have it somewhere, and maybe if I find it, I'll make a video where I talk about it and show it because I thought that'd be cool. Let's see. Another question, have you ever thought about breeding giant bettas? Um, yes, I did. I really, really like giant bettas. The Mr. Sprinkles that I had was, like, such a cute boy, but I've noticed from 'cause I spend a lot of time working and online, or I like to read what other people have in terms of their experiences, so I like to hang out in, the betta breeding Facebook groups. I don't really comment there much at all, so I'm not really active there, but I like to read a lot and see what other people are experiencing, and from my understanding, from what I've read that other people shared, is that for some reason, giant bettas are a bit tricky to breed because kind of a little more mellow, and you put them together to breed. Oftentimes, instead of wanting to spawn, they're like, "Hi, you're my roommate now. We're just gonna hang out together in this tank and just exist and not spawn." So that seems to be the problem is that people are running into. I haven't tried it myself. Okay, I will, but and then we'll see. Maybe they'll do the same thing. They'll try to be roommates, and then we'll document it. We'll talk about it and separate them, and they'll at least add it to the, I guess, experiences that I've been, like, compiling about fish. So, yeah, lots of cool stuff. I have very limited tank space since my parents are not fish people. I almost got into trouble for ordering a 5-gallon pet without permission. Oh, that's so hard when you really wanna have, like, more pets, but, know that, like, eventually, when, I guess, you're living on your own, you can have more of what you want. You can have more tanks, but I think sometimes it's can be frustrating when you want to have more pets, but your, like, family's limiting you. I think sometimes it's a good thing because when you have a lot of animals, it can be really cool, but it can very quickly get very overwhelming, and sometimes, like, life will happen, like, you can get sick, like, things will happen, but you still have to take care of all the animals. So sometimes having less as much as you wanna have more it's the best thing. For me personally, like, I wish I could fill this apartment with, like, animals. There's so many I wish I could have a pet bird 'cause I had parakeets when I was a little kid, and I miss having birds, and I don't have birds, and I would love to have more reptiles, and, like, I want, like, at least 2 more dogs. Like, I have a list. I have a whole list of animals, but I try to limit myself, so I'm like my own mom that tells myself no. So I told myself, like, the fish, you can get a reasonable amount of fish that fits in this room. If it doesn't fit in this room, then you're not gonna get any more. So that's kind of like the limitation I set for myself. And then with my other pets, I have my kitty, my dog, and my crested gecko. So that's like 3 pets plus my fish, and I'm trying to keep it that way for now. One day when I have a house, I'll get a couple more pets, but I'll try to, keep it within reason. 'Cause I also, like, don't wanna be overrun by animals too. Because it's nice that, uh, I can handle all the pets that I have, but it becomes stressful if something happens. I remember, like, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I got pretty sick. I was, like, really, really sick where I was, like, in bed for, like, a week and a half. And at the time, my husband, Daniel, he had to take care of my fish. And luckily, because he's always seeing what I do with my fish tanks and he's kind of involved, he knew what to do. But for a whole week and a half, like, he was responsible for everything. My fish, my crested gecko, the cat, and the dog, he had to do everything. And luckily, um, he had the skills to take care of all of them, but I know not everyone has that opportunity. And then when you do, or, like, when things happen, it becomes a lot of trouble, or, like, what if you move all of a sudden, or, things, can happen, and then that's my little ramble about that. So, it's frustrating, but, hopefully, you can enjoy the fishies that you have, and then eventually you can get some more, all in good time. It's just like we all have to, I guess, kind of sometimes not get all the things we want. At least for me, there's so many I want. I want a chinchilla. That's another pet I really want. I wanted a chinchilla for, like, the past 12 years, but my apartment gets really warm in the summer, so I'm like, "This is not a good idea." So I'll have to wait till I hopefully get a house, and if I get a base and if the house has a basement and it's nice and cool and I feel comfortable enough, I'll get a chinchilla. It'll be awesome. But okay. Uh Oh, I got more information about that. You're 14, you breed rabbits, and you started out breeding bettles. That's so cool. That's cool that you do those. I watch some of your videos. You got your homeschool. You got parakeets, fish, rabbits. You got all the critters: parakeets, fish, rabbits, goats, ducks, chickens. So you've got a lot. So maybe it's gonna sound bad, but maybe it's a good thing that like your parents are like limiting you a little bit because you already got all these really fun critters, and then eventually you can all totally expand and like um, get more. I do notice in the hobby, this happens so much where people get a lot of tanks and they really love it, and then it just somehow something happens and it's too much, and they get burnt out so fast, and then they completely leave the hobby, and it's so sad because I know so many cool fish people that were part of our hobby that just like had so much, and then they were just like, I can't do it anymore. So if you have a lot of critters, sometimes what can happen is it can also burn you out. I've actually experienced a little bit of burnout with my fish. I think it was during the pandemic where I wasn't going to fish club meetings. I was going to any like other fish stuff events, and I was just like by myself with my fish stuff, and I was like kind of like, so I don't want to do fish things for a while. But then luckily, I feel like after I was in that little slump, my I guess excitement for fish got reignited. So I'm really happy. So there's like ups and downs, but oh man, if I could have a farm, I would wild. Daniel would be like, crazy girl, you got pets in every room. That would happen if I had a farm. But anyways, and I don't want to ramble too much about this. So there's more people that are popping in here. We've got Matt Gray. Oh, you're working on tanks right now? Nice. So sometimes I used to put on live streams of other fish keepers when I was doing water changes. But nowadays, I have a habit of liking to put on ASMR videos. But it's always fun to like have fishy friends talk about fishy things. Well, you're doing fishy things, and it's double the fishy things. And plus, I like hanging out with you guys. You guys are super fun, and it's so exciting and so fun. Also, I want to share a random sad thing. But I was cleaning the kitchen this morning, and I was using a little bit of bleach, and I got it on my Creative Pet Keeping shirt. I bleached it, so there's that. Now I have two more of these, and I want to get some more. I want to order more of like the designs I made and all the stuff, but sadly, that one has been bleached. So that's my little ramble about that. Ooh, another question: is that okay for community? So, from my experience, some bettas do well in community tanks. Usually, shorter finned varieties do better than the longer finned because the longer finned fish get like the half moons, the like deltas, double tails. If they're in a large tank, those all that heavy finnage weighs them down, and it's a lot of swimming. And then we have to compete for anytime you're in a community tank, you have to compete for food, I guess, in some ways. Other fish will try to get all the food. So you have to be a little fast to be able to get all your food. And when you have really long fins, it makes it much harder to do that. So I think personally, placats are like the best candidates. Also, giants do pretty well in community tanks. You can totally have whale tails and other variety types. Just be mindful of to introduce the fish slowly. I like to introduce the other tank inhabitants first, and I add the betta last because bettas can get very territorial. So if you set up your tank, then you put in your betta first, and then you decide, oh, I want to add like some tetras into this tank. What's going to happen is this little fish has been in this tank, and this is his home. This is his territory. And all of a sudden, you put in new fish, and he's like, this is my home. You're not coming into my home. And then he'll be extra aggressive and defensive. But if you do it the other way around, where you let the other fish get acclimated and established into your tank, and then you slowly introduce your male, your chances are going to be a lot better. I do have a series that you can check out on my channel where I actually introduced a male into a betta community tank, and I use the floating breeder box method to more slowly introduce my fish because I noticed that when you have a betta that's never seen other types of fish before, sometimes they just become overstimulated and they want to just go after all the fish because they don't know what to do. But if you keep them in the floating breeder box for a few days, it prevents them from going after or harming the other fish, and then it lets them in a calm, safe way kind of get acclimated to the other tank mates, and they tend to kind of calm down. And then when you do release them, there's less aggression. So you can check out my streams, kind of see like how I introduce them. But do know that anytime you have a betta in the creative tank, you need to have a backup just in case if it doesn't work out. So if the betta is getting bullied or the betta is doing too much bullying and it's just not working out, you should have a backup tank or at least like a jarring setup or something that you can remove the betta and change the situation that he's in. Because if you keep fish in a stressful situation where you don't intervene long term, it is going to cause the stress will cause the immune system to become weaker, which in turn will make the fish susceptible to the disease, which in turn can cause an earlier death for the fish. And this is another water break. Really just blabbing. I'm like talking like 3 million miles an hour, but this is really fun. I really like talking to you guys. If you guys ever run into me at any fish events or like pet expos, when I talk to you, I'm chatty. I talk a lot. It's just warning you. Um, Oh, I've got another question. I've got a 55-gallon sorority with 10 female bettas, 4 mollies, and an angelfish. Could I add a longfin koi male in? So I'm a little nervous about your angelfish in that setup because angelfish can get kind of nippy and aggressive. Um, I would say if your sorority is already working with the 10 females, the 4 mollies, and if the angelfish is kind of chill and not bothering anyone, I would just kind of let it be because what happens is if you put the long fin koi male in, he may want to spawn with the females, and that would cause some fighting. But he could also fight with the angelfish. So I feel like it's one of those situations where I would just like, if it's working now, I would leave it and I would not add to it because it's already one of those situations where it's like, it doesn't sound like it would work because I know that angelfish can be like pretty aggressive. So if it works, then I would let it be and then plan on if you wanted to get a male betta maybe like is his own separate tank which you would probably enjoy anyways because males I noticed I mean I have a male in here with the females but this is a really docile male that has no interest in spawning so in this case it works out but that was because I removed all of my aggressive males first but if I put in any male like for example jark males in there he would probably right away try to fight them establish a territory, you would probably try to breed, and it could get kind of tricky. Um, so it would you don't want to stress yourself. So it's like you want to avoid stress, make it easy for yourself. Um, let's see. Let's look at some more stuff. I told you I have 4 bettas and 2 fancy goldfish and a 10-gallon community tank. Oh, are the bettas and the goldfish in the 10-gallon together? Because the what will happen with the fancy goldfish is they will outgrow that one pretty quickly. Because goldfish get super big very fast, and they also produce a lot of waste very quickly. So that's one of those cases that it might work right now, but like you might have to move the goldfish out to a larger tank. They might end up needing maybe like a at least I would say 20-gallon to a 40-gallon, and then the bettas can stay in the 10-gallon. But it's one of those things that like could work now, but as they grow, you might have to make adjustments, for the best situation for your patients. Oh my gosh, I'm getting a question. Are you single? I'm married. I don't wear my ring when I'm in the house, but I have been wifed up and snatched up. But I appreciate the compliments and whatnot. But it's really fun to hang out with you guys. I haven't even checked, but we actually have been talking for 59 minutes. So we're almost at the hour mark. I noticed we've got 41 thumbs up. So I appreciate your thumb. Oh, I just bumped. Sorry, I bumped you guys. I appreciate the thumbs up. I appreciate everyone that's here. Oh, I see heartbreak. I'm sorry. But I appreciate everyone that's hanging out. You guys are super fun. I really like the questions. I like that you guys let me ramble because it's kind of fun to do that, especially because I always take so much time to like really condense my videos, and I sometimes want to ramble. And it's nice to be able to share all my ideas and see what you guys are doing with your fish tanks. Because I get to share what I'm doing all the time with the hobby, but I don't really get to see what you guys are doing. So it's really nice to be able to see like what kind of tank setups you guys are having. What are some cool things that are happening, you guys? What are some like things that maybe you're struggling with that you need help with? Because I oftentimes, if I get stuck on something, when it comes to my own fish room, I will reach out to a lot of my fish keeping friends too, and I'll pick their brain and ask them a lot of questions and see if they have any other ideas. I think the coolest thing that ever happened to me was like, I think me and Jason from Primetime Aquatics were at one of the GCCA swaps, and we were talking about how water changes can sometimes cause fish to suddenly die. And we know a lot of the different like reasons as to why, but there was like another fish keeper that just like was passing us by and just happened to hear the conversation. And then he was like, "Oh, uh, did you know that like when some of the water gets pressurized, a lot of CO2 gets in the water? So when you're doing a water change and you're putting a lot of water in very quickly and you don't have a way to disperse CO2, that can actually cause your fish to very suddenly die too, as they suffocate." So he said that usually happens more in the winter for him. So he had a solution where he would actually refill his tanks by using a kind of like how you have a hose outside and then you have like different nozzles you can put on so you can spray it differently. He was using for his hose like for the inside to refill a tank. He was using one of those nozzles where he made the water spray out more, so it was hitting more of the surface of the water, and as that happened, the CO2 was kind of dissipating more, and it was also oxygenating the water. He was That was his like loophole to prevent that from happening. So it's cool stuff that like you don't know until you talk to like other fish people, because fish people come up with like really cool solutions to things, and they all have a lot of really cool ideas. And I think that's what's really cool about being able to share our hobby on social media, because I get to share stuff that I figure out with you guys. But, like you guys come up with like really cool stuff too. So let's check some more comments. Oh, hello. I got your name is Gang from Jimmy P's a Craze. You just subscribed. Hello. Welcome to my channel. I really appreciate that you subscribed. I hope that you enjoy my channel. I've got a ton of videos and I've been in the hobby for over 12 years. So I've been doing this for quite a while and I have a lot of videos that you will enjoy. Um, let's look at some more comments. Also, by the way, your voice is so soothing. Oh, thank you. I think it's I listen to a lot of ASMR videos, and I always find ASMR videos so calming. So I always try to like project that vibe. Like I want to make it really relaxing, so you guys feel like welcome and happy, and that you enjoy, spending time with me, because there's so much on social media nowadays. Like there's so many different YouTubers and there's like Instagram and everything. And with so many people out there, like you have so many chances to watch all this content, but yet you chose to take the time out of your day to hang out with me. And like that's a really cool special thing. I really appreciate it. So I try to my best to like, make it nice for you guys. If you guys if I can. Like when I do voiceovers, I'll always do the whole, like, okay, like pause, relax, and then you gotta talk. Sometimes I'll get too excited and I'll like ramble very quickly. So I try. I do wanna try, and I've been talking about this in previous videos. I wanna try a fish keeping ASMR video. I feel like it's gonna be a weird disaster, but I really wanna try doing it just one time. Not like this is not gonna become a fish keeping like ASMR video, a channel at all. Like, don't worry. But I just wanna try it. I just wanna try it because I don't know, like, would you guys enjoy, like, me trying to, like, very calmly and slowly and quietly, like, relax in a relaxing way, try to explain something to you or share some stuff? I don't know. I don't know. Like, I wanna try it, but I'm also a little nervous because I know that not everyone knows, like, what ASMR videos are, and I feel like they're gonna be like, "What are you being a weirdo?" But I don't know. I think I might be kinda cool, so I don't know. Um, so let me check. We've gone over the 1 hour mark, and I think this would be a good time, possibly, um, end the live stream maybe. But before I do it, I saw another question. Don't goldfish need cold water and bettas with well more? Yes, yes, they do. You can kind of meet in the middle, um, to, pick something in the middle that they would be okay with, where, you let bettas can tolerate slightly cooler temps, and goldfish can, tolerate warmer temps. It's one of those weird situations where they don't really go together, so most people don't recommend them to be together, but at the same time, some fish keepers make it work, which is why, like, when I see, like, you could call it, like, oddball combinations, I don't wanna tell people, like, "Oh, don't do that, that's bad," unless, like, some combination is crazy. Someone is like, "I got some piranha, I'm gonna put it with a betta." Like, that one, I was like, "No, don't do that." But there are situations, and I've seen this because I've had the privilege of coming to a lot of people's fish rooms and seeing what they have, and I've seen situations where in a tank, there were types of fish that in theory should not be working together, and yet it worked. So, because of that, I try to, like, when people bring up, like, oddball combinations, I try to be, like, open-minded and be like, "Okay, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt that, you're monitoring your tank the best you can, and if things go wrong, you will make adjustments, because sometimes things within reason will work, kinda thing." So, on that note, I think I had a really fun time hanging out with you guys. It is officially dark outside, so we went from light to dark, and I think live stream. I feel like I can just be here and talk to you guys forever, 'cause it's really fun. I really enjoy it. I can probably ramble forever too. This is really fun. But I also don't wanna make this video too super long, but it was so much fun to hang out with you guys. I really appreciate the super chats, everyone come over here, all the thumbs up. Those of you that are taking the time to rewatch this video after it goes live, thank you for, hanging out with me even though you didn't catch the live, and next month, I will try to give you guys a better, I guess, heads up if I'm gonna do a live stream. It'll still be a little random, but maybe what I'll do is, like, a few days before, maybe I'll do, like, a community post, and I'll let you guys know, like, "Oh, I'll live stream Friday," like, in between the time of this and this, or just give you a specific day so that you guys can better know, what to expect. And, yeah, I hope you guys have, a lovely holiday season. Those of you that are in the US, I know there's a big snowstorm going on, so I hope you guys are safe and warm, and that your fishies are also safe and warm, and that you have a lovely holiday. And yeah, thank you for hanging out with me. I really appreciate that you took the time out of your day. I will see you in the next video. Bye. I didn't end it. No, I click end.